Hello my dear students, this is your alternative English class and I'm your teacher Jonali Das. I'll be doing your alternative English along with Kishore Datta sir and Purabi Burman madam. Purabi madam will do your grammar part and Kishore sir and I will do the text part. Okay. Perhaps this is your first alternative English class of this session and this is your textbook. Okay. This book's name is Chinar and most probably all of you have gotten this book from your nearby shops. So today I will do the first chapter of your book and the name of the chapter, and it's a poem, The Daffodils, which is written by William Wordsworth. Now who was William Wordsworth? William Wordsworth was a romantic poet and he was an ardent lover of nature. Okay. In his poems, he used to write about nature. He used to eulogize nature in his poems. Here also, in this poem, The Daffodils, he talks about the daffodils. Daffodils is a kind of flower. He here said how the view of the daffodils has changed his mind, how he became elevated after seeing the daffodils, and how the memory of the sight of the golden daffodils used to influence him. All these things have been narrated in this poem. Here the poet has used several figures of speech like personification, simile, alliteration, hyperbole, and the rhyming scheme of the poem is A B A B C C. Let's start now. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high over vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. The poet is the speaker here. He is the narrator here. Here I means the poet William Wordsworth. He said that I wandered lonely as a cloud. The poet was moving aimlessly. Wandering means moving aimlessly. He was moving aimlessly here and there, and he was moving lonely. He was alone and he was moving like that of a cloud. The clouds usually in the sky, they used to move like as if they do not have any proper aim. They used to move here and there on this or that direction, so similar, as if they do not have any particular aim which way to go. So similarly, in that way, the poet was also wandering. He was also moving aimlessly, and he was lonely at that moment. He was alone and he was moving aimlessly. That floats on high over vales and hills. And he says that I was wandering like a cloud, lonely cloud, aimlessly. The clouds which used to float, which used to move on high, that means on the sky, over the vales. Vale means valleys, over the valleys, over the hills. So the clouds used to float up above on the sky, in the sky, over the hills, over the valleys. When all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils. Now, all of a sudden, the poet, he saw a crowd. Crowd means gathering. Here the poet has used personification. Crowd is actually used for the gathering of people. Now, the poet had seen something. He had seen a gathering of something. Okay? A host of golden daffodils. A host. Host also means gathering. Okay, large number of people. So here host is also another example of personification. And what did he see? The crowd or host of what he saw? He saw the host or crowd of golden daffodils. He saw daffodils which were yellow in color, and the daffodils were growing abundantly, plenty in numbers, and they were large in numbers. There were a group of the daffodils, a group of daffodil plants that he saw, and he saw all of a sudden. And the view of the golden daffodils filled his mind suddenly. When he saw the golden daffodils, his mind was filled with ecstasy. His mind was filled with immense joy when he saw it all of a sudden. Beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. And where did he see the golden daffodils? He saw the golden daffodils beside the lake. The daffodils were growing in large number on the bank of a lake. And beneath the trees, on the bank of the lake, there were some trees also growing. And beneath, under those trees, those golden daffodils, those yellow daffodils were growing in large numbers, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. So the daffodils were, what were the daffodils doing? The poet said that the daffodils were fluttering. That means the daffodils were moving up and down, side to side, and dancing in the breeze. And daffodils were dancing. That means they were moving. They were making movement as if they were dancing. So fluttering and dancing, this is also another example of personification. Usually flowers do not dance, they used to move only, but the poet has given human attributes to the flower. Personification is giving human attributes to something. And here the poet has used, in the stanza, the poet has used simile also. In the very first line he has used simile. The words like lonely as a cloud, it's an example of simile. Simile is a kind of comparison of two things using words like as, like. This is the example of simile. The daffodils were actually yellow in color, but in order to give a divine effect to them, the poet has used the word golden in the first stanza. Now let us move to the next stanza. Continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way, they stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay. 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. Now the poet says that the golden daffodils were, those yellow daffodils were growing continuously, growing in a continuous line. They were like continuous as the stars. They were like those of the stars which used to shine, which used to twinkle in the and the stars, like those stars of the Milky Way, those daffodils were also shining. They were also very bright in color, and they were growing in a continuous line. So Milky Way is the name of the galaxy of which our solar system is a part. So in the Milky Way, numbers of stars are there, and they used to shine, they used to twinkle. So the daffodils which were growing on the bank of the lake, which were growing under the trees, beneath the trees, they were also shining, they were also twinkling like those of the stars of the Milky Way. Along the margin, they stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay. They means those daffodils, those golden daffodils. They were growing abundantly, they were growing extensively in a never-ending line. The lines of the golden daffodils, the lines of the plants of the golden daffodils were unending. There was no end. It was growing extensively, abundantly, and the line was continuous, and they were growing along the margin of a bay. They were growing on the empty space at the edge of the lake. 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. Now the poet says that I saw 10,000 of what? 10,000 of those golden daffodils. I saw 10,000 when I had a brief look at them. Glance means having a brief look. When I had a brief look, I saw 10,000 of them, 10,000 golden daffodils, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. And those daffodils were moving their heads upwards, popping up their heads, and they were dancing. When they were dancing, their heads were also popping up. They were also moving up. Now in this stanza also the poet has used figures of speech, three figures of speech. First of all, he has used simile in the first line of this stanza, continuous as the stars. This is an example of simile. Next, he had used hyperbole. 10,000 saw I at a glance. Actually, it is not possible to count up to 10,000 in a brief look, but the poet had made an exaggerated assumption of the number of the daffodils. That's why he said that 10,000 I saw at a glance. Those daffodils were large in numbers, abundant in numbers. They were countless, and at least they may be 10,000 in numbers. So this is an example of hyperbole. Next is personification, tossing their heads and sprightly dance. These two are examples of personification, because the flowers do not dance, they used to move only, and tossing heads. The flowers do not have head, but the poet has said that tossing their heads. So these two are examples of personification. The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not be but gay in such a jocund company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. Now, seeing the daffodils dancing, which were dancing in the breeze, the waves of the lake also started dancing. The waves of the lake, which were beside the golden daffodils, they were also dancing, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. Here they means the daffodils, but the daffodils excelled, or the daffodils surpassed the waves which were sparkling, those sparkling waves, and those waves were also dancing in glee, happiness. Those seeing those happily dancing daffodils, the waves also became happy, and they were also dancing. Okay, those waves were sparkling, they were shining. Here the poet has used personification for the waves, because the waves cannot the poet has talked about the happiness of the waves. Glee means happy, being happy. So how can the waves be happy? But in a poem, everything can be possible. Everything can be made possible by a poet. Okay. So here the poet has said that the waves were also dancing along with the daffodils, but the daffodils excelled those. The daffodils surpassed those dancing waves, those sparkling waves, which were shining also, which were shining and dancing in glee, in happiness. A poet could not be but gay, and in such a jocund company. So the poet has now compared the company of the daffodils to a company which is cheerful. So a cheerful company, the company of a cheerful person can always make another person or other people happy. If we meet if we have a cheerful friend, any cheerful friend, then he or she always used to make us happy, make us laugh. So in that way, the poet the poet's association with the daffodils which were happily dancing. When the poet saw those happily dancing daffodils, the sight, when he saw that sight, he also became happy. He could not help becoming happy in such a cheerful company. Here the daffodils have been compared to jocund or cheerful company who made the poet cheerful, because in the beginning of the poet was saying that I was wandering aimlessly. He was wandering aimlessly like a lonely cloud. That means he was talking about loneliness in the first line. But gradually, when he saw the daffodils, when he saw them dancing, it affected him. He became seeing those happily dancing daffodils, the beauty of the daffodils. The poet became excited. His mind became elevated, and he feels that he could not help becoming happy in the company of such joyful daffodils, such sprightly dancing daffodils. In the company of them, he could not help becoming happy. A poet means here the poet had talked about himself only. Gay means happy. Jocund means cheerful. Here it is an example of metaphor, jocund company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. The poet was gazing. He was staring at the golden daffodils. Here the poet has given emphasis on the word gaze. Gaze. He was staring and staring. He was gazing and gazing. He could not resist himself. He could not stop himself from looking or staring at the daffodils. And when he was staring at the daffodils, then a little thought came to his mind. And what was the thought? The thought was, what wealth the show to me had brought. So he was thinking that what kind of wealth the show means the sight of those golden daffodils, what kind of wealth the sight had brought to me. Here the wealth means, here the poet has come, it means the happiness. So what kind of wealth the sight, the scene of the golden daffodils has brought for me. It was the happiness that it had brought for me. Before seeing those daffodils, the poet was lonely. He was aimlessly wandering. But when he saw those daffodils, he became excited. He became happy, and so that happiness is a kind of wealth for him. So he said that it is a wealth for me that the sight, the show means the sight of dancing daffodils had brought for me. It is indeed a kind of wealth for me, which they had brought for me. For oft when on my couch I lie in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is a bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure feels and dances with the daffodils. Now the poet said that for oft means often. For often when I used to lie on my couch. Couch means sofa. In vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye. So when the poet used often, now after seeing those daffodils, often when the poet used to lie on his couch, and whenever he is in vacant mood or he is in a pensive mood. Pensive means thoughtful or contemplative mood, and vacant means empty. His mind is empty. Or sometimes when he is sad or when he is in thoughtful mood, then what happens? They flash upon that inward eye. They means those daffodils. Now when the poet is in his thoughtful, or when he is in vacant and pensive mood, and when he used to lie on his couch, he the sight of the golden daffodils now used to flash upon in his inward eye. Inward eye means mind's eye, in the eye of his mind. Though the memory, the view of the golden daffodils, the view of the dancing daffodils had become a memory for the poet now, and that memory, in his memory, the site had become the sight of those golden daffodils had become a lasting memory for the poet, and not and whenever he used to think about those daffodils, now even the memory of the golden daffodils used to make the poet happy. Okay, which is the bliss of solitude, and it is actually the happiness brought by solitude. Okay, the memory of the golden daffodils which used to flash upon in his mind's eye, which used to flash upon his inward eye, is actually a kind of happiness which is brought by solitude. Because and then my heart with pleasure fills, because when in his mind the sight of the golden daffodils used to flash upon, then his mind used to fill with pleasure. Okay, his mind used to fill with happiness, pleasure, joy. Even the memory of those golden daffodils used to make him happy. So such was the company, such was the beauty of the dancing daffodils, that it used to make the poet happy even with its memory also, when the poet was in his vacant and pensive mood and dances with the daffodils, and the poet's heart used to dance with the daffodils. Okay, whenever the sight of the golden daffodils used to flash upon in his inward eye, the poet's heart used to fill with pleasure and his heart used to dance with the daffodils. Now here in this stanza, the poet has used alliteration in the last line. Okay, the last line, dances with the daffodils, it is an example of alliteration. Alliteration means repetition of same sound or same word. So that's all for today, and I hope I guess there is no confusion in this poem. If you have any kind of confusion, if you have any kind of query, then feel free to ask me. Feel free to ask me and go through this poem after the class. Whenever you get time, go through it. Then it will be it will become easier for you to understand. So we will meet you in our next class. Till then, goodbye.